All right, guys, welcome to the Inklings. Now, obviously, this is going to be a little bit of a different episode. I know the last kind of episode that we had, um, we didn't put the Inklings tab and logo on it. It's not even in the playlist. Um, but this is going to be something that I wanted to bring up because
It's important.
as we're working through the short story, it takes time to write it, and we'll get into some of how some of that writing process is going, such as like introduction and how that's how going and how you start. We're going to be coming up with that, but as we're a little bit busy right now in our current seasons, there's going to be some filler episodes as we're working through the short story, because the short story, well, it's a short story, but it takes a longer time.
Right. There's a lot more commitment there. And we just want to make sure that when we do have something to share, it's quality.
Yeah.
And we don't want to rush something out for the sake of, here's an episode on the introduction of the short story. We put it together in an hour. We want to be able to approach it with care and the timing that it deserves. And like you said, both of us have busy day-to-day lives. And that doesn't always lend itself well to some things that we'd rather be doing. But that's neither here nor there. But it is coming. It is happening. We haven't forgotten about it. But
Yeah. So there's going to be some filler episodes that we have, and they're going to be different things that we'll also be kind of doing a deep dive into some of how do we do and how do we do some of these things. So easy one that we can do right off the bat is we're going to do poetry as ways to kind of put in the mix of the short story. I'm also currently working on trying to get a songwriting episode in. So how do you do songwriting, and having some guest speakers on for that, and being able to hopefully write a song and sing it and perform it and get that in the studio, all that kind of thing. And what does that look like? So there's other things that we're working on in the midst of all these things happening and going on. So it's not like we're putting it aside and not working on it again. We'll be working on it again. But there's going to be other episodes that we're working on and doing that you guys can enjoy as we're also working on some other things. So look forward to some poetry next week as we get into it. I know it's kind of a shorter episode, but I'll rattle off some things that we're also thinking about doing as well, just so you have an idea of some of the things you can look forward to. So obviously there's the songwriting and writing some of those things. We're also thinking about doing various types of poetry, as I was saying. We're also thinking about doing a children's book and writing a children's book. Maybe not illustrating it, but my sister wants to, get into the artist, all that kind of stuff for illustrating. So we'll probably do something in that line. And that could, well, I don't know if that's easy or hard to do. I haven't really looked into it, but that's something we could do. Also, board game and card game that we can come up and write and create. So if you have any other ideas that you would love to see us do for like creating, and maybe that's even a script.
So, yeah.
Like playwright or different things like that. Other things that you can think of, like different writing things. I mean, this is called the Inklings.
Do a D&D campaign. Just throw your ideas out there.
We can come up with them, and we can explore how you do some of these things. Like even for a D&D campaign, what would it like to play through a campaign that we created?
Completely homebrewed. Will it be a nightmare? Will it be glorious? Who knows?
It would be an interesting experiment and something to go through as we're on this podcast. It's a podcast, but it's more of an exploratory podcast, and also we're learning alongside you and being able to share what we learn and kind of what we at the end result of it. Because hopefully, one of the goals is to have these available to you at some point. Where you can either A, purchase them, or B, see them and understand how they work and what it is and the process that it is to create some of these things. which on one scale, they seem a lot harder than maybe they are to actually do. But you don't know unless you go through that process.
Right.
So anyway, it's a little bit of an update on the Inklings. We're not forgetting about the short story.
It's still there.
It's still there. We'll just be taking little breaks here and there. So we'll update you when we get something bigger on the short story. But for now, I know we're going to be doing poetry next week.
Any specific type of poetry, Brandon?
We're going to be looking at haikus.
Ooh.
So stay tuned for that, and we'll catch you on the flip side.